Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Um, Thank you for returning. This is Foundation Course number 2 on Buddhist Refuge. And today we're going to do class 4, which is on different ways we can classify or divide the wish for enlightenment, bodhicitta. So let's see here. Before we get into it, let's please just take a moment and get clear in our minds about why we're here. Why are we taking this course? What's our motivation for being here right now? What seeds do we want to plant? How can this course help us to be the best kind of being we can be? And if you would like to join me to do some prayer before class. I want to bring you back. Sangye chiran zoki chaknam la changchu partu dakni kyapsu chi daki chushe ki pe sunam ki la pinchir sangye druparsho sangye chiran soki chaknam la changchu partu dakni kyapsu chi daki chushe ki pe sunam ki jola pinchir sangye druparsho Sangye chiran soki chuknam la changchu partu dakni kyapsu chi daki chushe gipe sunam ki jola pinchir sangye druparsho. Sachi puki jukshi metok tram Viram Vingshi Ninde Gempati Sangye Shindu Dikte Uarki Jokun Namdak Shinga Chuparsho. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnirya Daya. So first, I want to apologize for having to take time away from our schedule. I know that it's inconvenient for a lot of people, and I really appreciate your patience with this particular bag of bones I've got going on. So last time I think I did uh misspeak about, we were talking about that the mind can't have two objects at the same time, and that when we talk about the wish for enlightenment, bodhicitta, it has two parts, right? It has the wish for total and complete enlightenment as one part, and the second part is that uh, we wish to become fully enlightened in order to benefit all living beings. And so there, I was talking about these two parts, and it they are what's known in Tibetan as riktunpa, which means they're complementary. These two thoughts of becoming fully enlightened and wanting to benefit all living beings. So it is possible to have these two in your mind at the same time because they are complementary. We couldn't have like a thought of anger and a thought of bodhicitta in the mind at the same time. Those are dissimilar thoughts. So those two thoughts couldn't be going on. Um, so just to hopefully clarify that. Okay, let's see. Tim Lowenhaupt taught me a new way to share. So let's see if this works better. So can you still see me? Oh no, you see my whole screen. That doesn't work. You see my notes. So I just want to share the content. Uh-oh, you still see my screen. Document as background. There we go. Okay. I think that's what I want to show. Can you still see the Tibetan okay? Because I can't see now how it's sharing. I got to bring back the chat. Okay. Okay, there's a grin. So I'm hoping this means that that's a good thing. Okay. For those of you who care, here's what Rick Toompa looks like. Okay. So today we're going to talk about 4 different ways that we can classify or divide bodhicitta. We're going to, oh, lovely. we are going to, thank you. I'll make this a little bigger. We're going to divide it into 4. And then we're going to divide it into 3. And then we have 2 different ways that we can divide it into 2. So here's the division into 4. And this requires some setup. We did talk about this a tiny bit before. This is dividing bodhisattva by level, by like spiritual level of attainment. And we talked before about the 5 paths that a person goes through, whether they're on the listener track or the self-made Buddha track or the bodhisattva track, right? That each of these tracks has 5 paths. The paths all have the same name, but what they mean exactly is different between them. So just to be clear, today is all about the bodhisattva track, okay? And we're going to go through these levels again from the point of view of the bodhisattva track, where the goal is total and complete enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. Okay, so the first path is called soplam, is called accumulation. The second path is called chorlam, or the path of preparation. The third path is called the path of seeing. This is where we see emptiness directly for the first time. The fourth path is called the path of habituation, where we'll talk about what that means. And then the fifth path is called Milope Lam, which means the path of no more learning. So Tonglam, this is where the first time in our beginningless lives, we change into a different kind of being. We change from an ordinary being into one who has entered the stream, one who has become an Arya, who has seen emptiness directly, who has met the Buddha, who has, after we see emptiness directly, then there's like 16. Well, we see the 4 Arya truths, each of which has 4 parts. So there's like 16 realizations that we have after we see emptiness directly, and we become a whole different kind of being. I don't quite understand it. You remember it by ATM. Okay, cool. So we become this different kind of being. And we know that within a certain number of lifetimes, we know that number, that we will become fully enlightened. Um, so this is like the the major point, aside from the goal, on these 5 paths. Um, the path of preparation, which comes right beforehand, I think we also talked about this, is where the last moment of this path, um, we uh, we see for the first time directly how it is that we are projecting our world. We have the experience of being aware of images coming from our minds and appearing to go out, these luminous mental images. We see that happening. Um, and the time before that experience, they call it chuchok, um, is where we're spending a lot of time studying and meditating on emptiness, developing a very clear, correct, and detailed understanding of what emptiness means. What does the absence of a self nature mean exactly? We're very well versed in that. So that path is spent um, preparing our understanding of the way things really are. The path before that, path of accumulation, this is where um, we're planting the seeds we need in order to understand emptiness correctly, in order to then have a direct realization of emptiness. Um, now, the path of accumulation on for all 3 tracks is it begins with when we have renunciation, when we have that uh, total dissatisfaction with thinking that things come from outside of us, thinking that any happiness that we experience in this world uh, is of benefit. We realize that we are in the cycle of suffering. We obviously feel pain, emotional and physical, but now we've also come to realize that any pleasure we ever experience, any happiness we ever experience, ends. It doesn't last. And so we turn to, with renunciation, we turn to taking refuge in the 3 jewels that they are the only ones who can help us become a being who has escaped from being trapped into thinking that anything could bring us satisfaction that is outside of ourselves. Impossible. So we have this renunciation. We renounce the normal habitual way that we have had about thinking that, anything can help me. Anything that doesn't come from how I have acted and thought and said about other people, helping them. So that's the that's the measure of having reached the path of accumulation, is when we have renunciation, and that's all three tracks, right? The path of habituation, after we see emptiness directly and experience the four Arya truths, then we become habituated to what we saw. Gom. Sometimes people will call this the path of meditation, because it's the same word, same spelling that we use in Tibetan for meditation. But it's really getting used to, because we see it directly in meditation. And then when we come out, things still appear to us to be coming at us. We don't have that chuchok that I talked about, the highest state on the path of preparation. We're not seeing images, luminous images coming out of our mind, right? Things do appear to be coming this way. So we don't believe it. There's not like there's a question. We don't fall for it, but it's still appearing that way. So we're getting used to this extraordinary experience that we had, this extraordinary realization that nothing has a nature of being what it is from its own side. So this period of habituation, this is, the path of seeing, that can take, well, it depends on who you ask. Some people say seconds. Like in the Abhidharma Kosha, they say it's only seconds. Geshe Michael has said that it takes about 20 minutes. So that's a very short path. And then the path of habituation is the long one. That's the one that, can take 7 lifetimes to get used to what we saw. Now, in future lifetimes, once this particular bag of bones dies, and then you go into your next rebirth, there's this experience that you'll have if you're an Arya, if you saw emptiness directly for the first time in this life. In your next life, there'll be a bakchakse. And what that means is that your seeds that you planted from having had this experience, they will ripen in your mind when in your new body, your mind and body have developed to an extent where you can continue on this path of preparation. So it's not going to happen while you're an infant. It'll be somewhere, somewhere around the age of like a second grader or something, or 7 years old, something like that. Where you've started to go to school, so you're learning language, you're learning how to think, you know how to dress yourself, stuff like that. You're becoming a little person, a little independent person, and so these seeds will then ripen, and somewhere between 7 and 15, something like that. These seeds will ripen in your mind, and it's like you accelerate in your understanding. I've heard it described of some teachers who are reincarnations of high teachers, and people have described how they used to be like bratty little kids, and used to be wild horse kids, not interested in study or anything like that, and all of a sudden, boom, one day it just those seeds have ripened, and they continue on their spiritual journey. Anyway, that's kind of interesting. So during this path of habituation, what we're doing is we're by becoming more and more familiar with what we saw, we're working to rid ourselves of, well, there's two different kinds of the habit. I shouldn't say that. There's two different kinds of seeing things incorrectly, of misunderstanding. One is an intellectual misunderstanding. And then the second is an innate or inborn misunderstanding. The intellectual one is based on what we've learned in this life. The innate one is a misunderstanding that's based on, beginningless lives of misapprehending our world. That plants a very, very strong, deep seed for seeing things incorrectly. So when we see emptiness directly, we've completely eliminated the intellectual misunderstanding. We now have a correct intellectual understanding based on our own direct experience. In the path of habituation, we're working on ridding ourselves of this deeper seed for misunderstanding, the innate misunderstanding. When we come out of the direct perception of emptiness, that intellectual misunderstanding is immediately gone. Someone could ask us, or say to us something like, wow, that music is the best music on earth, and it makes everyone happy. And we go, no, that's not how it works. We planted the seeds to make someone happy, by caring for them or speaking sweetly or something. And they say, well, do you hear it that way? You really think that? No, I don't hear it that way, but I know it for sure. You can't talk me out of that. I know that's true. To actually hear it as coming from us, that's what we're working on clearing up through the path of habituation. Okay. And then Milopelam is no more learning. Completely eliminating all negative emotions and karmas. So at that point, on the Bodhisattva track, we are fully enlightened. We've rid ourselves of all negative emotions and all negative seeds. So let me see, there's a question in the chat. On the path of preparation, we learn to see moments of emptiness or independent origination and gradually approach the path of seeing emptiness with bodhicitta. Right. So in the path of preparation, we are studying we are perfecting our intellectual understanding of emptiness. It's a lot of class hours and a lot of thinking about it, like talking deeply with friends about our understanding, debate if you have a debate partner, and meditating, doing analytic meditations, exploring within our own, being in a state of meditation, exploring these ideas, and picking them apart, analyzing them clearly. And then on the Bodhisattva track, as you say, we have bodhicitta, because we got that at path 1, right? We got that at the path of accumulation. Actually, I was just about to tell you that. On the Bodhisattva path track, along with renunciation, we have bodhicitta at the beginning. That's the marker for a bodhisattva being on the path of accumulation, is renunciation and bodhicitta. So path 1 for a bodhisattva begins at that moment, the path of accumulation. So we do have bodhicitta. And so, yes, when we see emptiness directly, we have bodhicitta. Then the other thing that's different about the 5 paths for the bodhisattva track is that path number 5, which is actually a result, right? Path as in realization. Is on the lower 2 tracks, it's nirvana or arhat. That's the path of no more learning. For a bodhisattva, eliminating through the path of habituation, eliminating all our negativities, with bodhicitta in our minds and our hearts, we become fully enlightened. Okay. Let's see here, other chats. Let's see, old refuge on the, yeah, yes, we renounce old refuges. That's a great way to put it. And then question number 2, in which part of the Abhidharma are the times about the path of vision written, or we did talk briefly about the 5 paths earlier, and yes, it does come from the all of the content for this course comes from Maitreya's Jewel of Realizations, which is an it is a Mahayana path in the Abhidharma Kosha. It's probably in the Kosha, Abhidharma Kosha, where they talk about the 5 paths. That I'm not entirely sure, but it's probably so, because the Abhidharma Kosha by Master Vasubandhu, as you say, is the what do you call it? I don't know. I lost some of my words. It's the text for the Abhidharma school, the detailist school. Okay, so any question about the 5 paths? Do we have it clear in our minds what's going on with each path? Accumulation, where we begin that path with renunciation and the wish for total enlightenment in order to benefit all living beings. We're doing a lot of study and practice on this path. And then the path of accumulation is where we are, no, that's the path of accumulation. Then the path of preparation is where we're becoming more and more intellectually stable in our understanding, our correct understanding of the nature of reality. Then we see emptiness directly in the 4 Arya truths. Then we become habituated to what we saw. And then we become fully enlightened in order to benefit all living beings. Okay, now let's talk about this first way of dividing or classifying the wish for enlightenment by level. So the first, make sure my head doesn't cover it. The first is called Mupe Chupe Semke. So please say Mupe Chupe Semke. Mupe Chupe Semke. Mupe Chupe Chupa just means wanting to help a living being. When we look at someone, when we look at a person, we think they're appearing to us as coming from their own side, right? But we've had enough teachings to know that there's something wrong with the way we're seeing the world. They call this the wish that acts out of belief. So we've been taught, but we don't yet, we haven't yet seen it, that things are not coming at me. And that makes sense, right? If we have renunciation, we know that, as who is this who said this? As Min Triet said, we our old refuges, we know they can't help us. So it makes sense that the bodhicitta at this level is a wish that acts out of belief. So when we're walking around in the world at this level, with this level of bodhicitta, our the idea that we have is that this person, well, let's just use angry boss, right? Or yeah, angry boss, whatever. This person, I used to think that this person was an angry person from their own side, like they had some emotional problems and they were angry all the time. And, maybe I wanted to help them be less angry. But now at this level, I understand that anger, that's coming from something I did in the past. Wow. I need to work on my anger so that I can reach the state of enlightenment, so I can truly help him, rather than just trying to teach them patience, or trying to teach them how to see the good in the world, or, rather than working on normal refuge ideas, working on deceptive ideas, thinking in our own minds, right, this is what my teacher was talking about. This anger that I'm experiencing from this person is something that I created. And this is a clue when I experience an angry person. It's a clue that I need to watch my behavior. It's like I'm sending myself a message. These are the seeds I planted. These are the kinds of seeds I planted to see an angry person in the past by being angry at someone else. So now, so I can benefit this person, I need to be very mindful about being kind and loving and helpful to people. Whatever that looks like. Doesn't mean being all sappy or, emotional. We can have love without it being, too sweet. But so we're incorporating what we've been taught on this path, right? This is the level we're at. It's not just wanting to be a good person. It's starting to pull out, when we walk through the day, the experiences we have throughout the day, we are taking them as signs, as indications of how to focus our practice, so we can increase our understanding of the way things really are. I hope that makes sense. If we understood that things are coming from us and not towards us, if we understood that, we couldn't get angry, right? because no one wants to experience an angry person. We'd never harm anyone because we don't want to be harmed in the future. So we're at this level, we're putting this into practice. We still see things as coming at us. We still like maybe are surprised for a moment if someone yells at us. We may experience like a moment of anger when someone yells at us and says we did something we didn't do, or someone hits us, or someone takes something from us. We can have a moment of like, why are they doing that? But then it's like it's quick. We're working on shortening that time frame between our reaction, our normal reaction to situations, and our understanding from the perspective of these teachings. This is an indication. Yes, I need to be very careful about other people's belongings, like that. So, which paths does this level relate to of this belief bodhicitta? It relates to the first two paths: the path of accumulation and the path of preparation. It's what we're doing, not only to accumulate merit. I mean, that sounds like we've got a basket and we're just like collecting good deeds to put in our basket. But we're changing our minds. That's what practice is. We're changing how it is we are in the world, how it is we deal with our experience. So in these two paths, that's what we're doing. That's the level of bodhicitta we have. So this bodhicitta, interestingly, has more to do with emptiness than it does with this, I want to become enlightened so I can help people. Isn't it interesting? It's about seeing things in our mind's eye as coming from us and not at us. So the first level of bodhicitta, belief bodhicitta, is related to the first two paths of the five paths. The second level is called Hlaksam Dakpe Senke. Please say Hlaksam Dakpe Senke. And this is, it's got a weird sort of name that doesn't have much to do with what it is. But anyway, that's what it is. Hlaksam, Hlak means special. Sam means thought. dakpa means pure. Uh, and laksam dakpe is the word for personal responsibility. In other courses, several times throughout this course series, we talk about there are different practices you can do to develop bodhicitta. And one of these practices is the 7-step cause and effect practice for developing bodhicitta, and personal responsibility is one of those steps. It's the step right before bodhicitta, where you say, I'm going to do what it takes. I'm the one. And no one has to help me. I don't care if anyone helps me. People can try and stop me. People can say I'm crazy, but I'm taking personal responsibility for the enlightenment of every living being on every planet in the universe. So it's a very high level. It's a very high thought, very special thought. When we're talking about these 4 levels of bodhicitta, excuse me, this level of bodhicitta, that the wish that acts out of personal responsibility, this is associated with the 3rd path, the path of seeing. So you have seen emptiness directly, and you no longer have an intellectual belief in self-existence. So this is bodhicitta in the mind of an Arya on path number 3. Now, this may be a little bit confusing, but hopefully not too much. So we have our 5 paths, right? From on the bodhisattva track, it's when we become a bodhisattva at path 1, we're accumulating and we're preparing. Then we see emptiness directly. We habituate with what we saw. We become fully enlightened. Within these last 3 paths, there's what's known as the bodhisattva grounds, or you may have heard the word bhumi, the bodhisattva bhumis. These are, and it's unfortunate that the word level is commonly used because we're talking about bodhicitta levels. But now we're jumping over to talk about bodhisattva levels, bodhisattva grounds. So there are, just in a nutshell, these 10, again, they're advancements through the 5 paths, the last 3 of the 5 paths. And they have to do with, for example, 6 of them are related to practicing and perfecting the 6 perfections. So you saw emptiness directly, and now you're the first level is related to practicing generosity. And then like that, going through the 6, and then there are 4 more. We're not going to get into it. I just wanted to mention that there are these 10 levels that fit, that occur in paths 3, 4, and 5, in path of seeing, habituation, and no more learning. Okay. So while you do become a bodhisattva at path 1, path of accumulation, you reach the first bodhisattva level at path 3, when you have seen emptiness directly with bodhicitta in your heart. And that's when you have reached this second bodhicitta level, which is the wish that acts out of personal responsibility. Okay. And this level of bodhicitta, this starts at path 3, but it starts at ground 1 and goes through ground 7. Okay, so of those 10, this level of bodhicitta, personal responsibility, the one that has eliminated intellectual belief in self-existence, that exists from the first ground through the 7th ground. So it's a good chunk of time. You know, it's all of 3 and a good part of the 4th path, the path of habituation. Then the 3rd level of bodhicitta is called Nampar Minpe Semke. Nampar Minpe Semke. Please say Nampar Minpe Semke. And this is called the ripened wish. Nampar Minpe means ripened, like a seed ripens. So this is the ripened wish. So at this level of bodhicitta, you know, the previous one we gave up intellectual misunderstanding, right? At this level, you give up the I hesitate to say give up the innate, but you things don't appear to you to be self-existent any longer. But you still have the seeds in your heart to see things as self-existent. There, you haven't reached the goal yet. You haven't eliminated all your negative emotions and karmic seeds, which is what has to happen to become enlightened. So that things don't come this way. You don't experience things coming at you, but you still have the seeds some seeds inside of you for that to happen. It's not going to happen at that level of spiritual development. You are well on the path to eliminating those seeds. That's what we're doing in the path of habituation, is eliminating these seeds to see things in the wrong way. So someone who's on the third level of bodhicitta, the bodhicitta of personal responsibility, and the fourth level of bodhicitta, the level of ripening bodhicitta, ripening wish. They both have, of course, seen emptiness directly. They both have eliminated their intellectual misunderstanding of how things are, but it's only on the third level, the ripening wish level, where they've given up the habit of seeing things as self-existent. My understanding, only a Buddha can see what they call deceptive reality and ultimate reality at the same time. Only an fully enlightened being. But my understanding from other teachings is that bodhisattvas at this very high level are like toggling very quickly. They're also at these high levels having the experience of being able to manifest themselves, to go to Buddha paradises and receive teachings from enlightened beings and manifest themselves to help other people. And so they're toggling between seeing deceptive reality, but they're not deceived, and seeing ultimate reality, which only a Buddha can see simultaneously. Okay, so they're becoming so advanced. It's not like one day we're an ordinary Arya, and then boom, all of a sudden we have all these powers and abilities. These powers and abilities come along the way at very high levels of the Bodhisattva path. Okay. So at level 3, the ripening wish for enlightenment, the Bodhisattva has given up the habit of seeing things as self-existent, the innate misunderstanding. And then the fourth level is called Jupa Pangpe, Jupa Pangpe Semkye. Please say Jupa Pangpe Semkye. Jupa means obscuration, and Pangpa means eliminated. So at this level, you've eliminated all obscuration. This is the wish where all obstacles are eliminated. This is bodhicitta in the mind of an enlightened being. So just to recap the 4 different levels. So this one, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that the 3rd level, the 3rd level, the ripening wish for full enlightenment, that occurs at it starts at the 8th bodhisattva ground. And goes up to the 10th bodhisattva ground, or we could say up to path 5. So it's at the latter part of path 4 to path 5. Okay. Okay, so the first bodhisattva level, erase that. The first level of bodhicitta, the belief bodhicitta, the person sees things as self-existent, thinks they're self-existent, but also because of the teachings, they believe they might be wrong. The second level, personal responsibility, wish for enlightenment, they see things as self-existent, but they have no intellectual misunderstanding. They've seen emptiness directly. They have intellectual misunderstanding is gone. The third level, the ripening level of bodhicitta, they don't see things as self-existent, but they still have seeds for seeing things as self-existent in their hearts. And the fourth level of bodhicitta, the wish where all obstacles are eliminated. They don't see things as self-existent. They don't think things are self-existent. And there are no seeds existing in them that could ripen into seeing things as self-existent. Okay. Whew. So that was how we can divide bodhicitta into 4 by level of spiritual attainment. Now we're going to talk about a whole different way of thinking about bodhicitta. And this is about motivation, different motivations we can have for how we want to reach the goal of becoming fully enlightened. And this will make sense once we get into it. The first one is called Gyalpo Tabui Tsemke. Say Gyalpo Tabui Tsemke. Gyalpo. Does anyone, I know I've got some Tibetan people here who are interested in Tibetan. Does anyone know what Gyalpo is? King. Yes, thank you, Wangbu. Gyalpo is king, and Tabui. This shows up in all 3. This is where we divide it into 3. Tabui means like or similar to. And this is bodhicitta. So this is the type of bodhicitta where you are thinking like a king. Now, how is it that kings think? I mean, I don't know a king, but I sort of think they think they're number 1, right? I'm going to lead the way. I know what's best, and where I go, my people will follow. So the king-like wish for enlightenment is that I want to get enlightened as quickly as possible so that I can help all other beings. That's the only way it's going to work. And so I need to get there quickly and then bring everyone else along. The king's wish for enlightenment. There are two other types of motivation. This second one is called Zibo Tabui Semke. Zibo. Zibo. It's a funny word. It means a zibo is someone who cares for other beings, like a luxi. So this is just, it's shortened to Z. A luxi is a shepherd. Thank you, Mintret. A luxi is a shepherd. A badzi is a cowherd. A tadzi is someone who cares for horses. And a putzi is someone who babysits, who cares for babies. So this is called the shepherd-like wish for enlightenment. And if you know how, especially with sheep, I'm not so sure about the other animals or babies for that matter. Well, maybe you always are running after babies, but with sheep, the shepherd is behind the flock and is like pushing the flock to go in a certain way. Like sometimes they have dogs that help them shepherd the sheep to go in a particular way. Ting fairy choo choo choo. So this one is that I want to help everyone else get enlightened first, and then I'll go. So first, everybody else, I'm the lowest being of all. Everyone else deserves to be fully enlightened, free of suffering, completely amazing, fully enlightened being. And then once everyone else is cared for, then I'll become enlightened myself. And then the third in this set of division by motivation is called Nyempa Tabui Semke. Nyempa. And Nyempa, as Mintriet says, is fairy. So this is the fairy-like wish. Fairy is in a conveyance across water. The I don't know, we call it ferrymen, but it sounds very outdated language, because I'm sure there are some female people who drive ferries. Anyway, so on the ferry, everyone is together, right? The person who's driving the ferry and everybody else get to the other shore at the same time. No one stays behind, no one goes ahead. So The text doesn't talk about any one motivation being any like higher than any other motivation of these three. I've heard stories, and there's a wonderful story that's talked about in course 14 on developing a good heart, where there is this sage who had the shepherd motivation. He really wanted other people to get enlightened so badly. And he's on his, it makes me cry thinking about it, but he's like, he's reached such a high level, and he's about to become enlightened, and he's like, oh wait, not everyone's enlightened yet. They have to go first. But he can't. He because it's the first one is the way it works. The king-like bodhicitta. We become enlightened and then benefit all living beings. Okay, so that's the division into three by motivation, or by how we think about the wish. Now there are two more divisions left, through two ways to divide or classify the wish for enlightenment. And they both divided into two. They both are divisions into two. So this third way is division into two by nature, by the basic nature of the wish. And we've talked about this. If you took the course on the Bodhisattva vows with me, we talked about this one. The first one is called Munpa Semkye. Munpa Semkye. And Munpa means to pray. So this is the wish in the form of a prayer. And the second one is called Jukpe Semkye. Jukpe Semkye. And this is wish in the form of action. So before we, and they go in that order. We have wish in the form of a prayer, where I would like to become a bodhisattva. I'm very interested in the bodhisattva path, in the bodhisattva ideal, in, this whole enlightenment thing. Wow, it sounds exactly what I want to do. I really want to do this. So this is the desire to become a bodhisattva. And the wish in the form of action is when we actually take the vows of a bodhisattva and we start practicing the deeds of a bodhisattva. There are 37 of them. We're not getting into that. But we're actually you could say that the wish in the form of a prayer is, if we looked at the 5 paths again, the wish in the form of a prayer would be before path number 1, right? Because the sign for reaching the first path is when we have renunciation and bodhicitta. So we have that. We have the wish before we get to the first path, or we can get it Yeah, no, I think you have to. That's what I'm thinking, that we have to. Anyway, so it's like wanting to go, like I want to travel to Asia, or I want to travel to Russia. I've never been to Russia. Like I have, a wish. Oh, I could go to Ukraine. I've heard I have a wish to go there. And then actually buying the ticket and getting on the airplane and traveling. That's the difference between the wish in the form of a prayer and the wish in the form of actions. The fourth way to divide bodhicitta into two. One is called ultimate bodhicitta, and the other is called apparent bodhicitta. Sometimes you might hear deceptive bodhicitta. But I like apparent bodhicitta. And as you might imagine, ultimate is related to emptiness, and apparent is related to, what the things that arise. So ultimate bodhicitta is the direct perception of emptiness, and apparent bodhicitta is our normal thought about what bodhicitta is, which is a wish to become enlightened in order to benefit all living beings. It's the thoughts in our minds, it's the practices we do, it's our movement on these five paths to reaching full enlightenment in order to benefit people. It's all the things that appear, that arise. All of that is in apparent bodhicitta. So you can see that in these divisions, there is overlap. It's not like they're mutually exclusive divisions. But just as as we continue our studies and learn more about both the path to enlightenment and about emptiness and seeing emptiness directly, this gives us a sort of grounding for teachings that other teachings will receive in the future as we continue our journey. Wow, I ended early. Are there any questions? Maybe I should get sick more often. Anybody have any questions? So you want to go home early or go to bed early or something? Go have dinner? Watch a movie? I don't know. So let's see, did I stop share? I did stop share. Okay. Good, Utpala. So let's take a moment and wow, there's a lot of stuff covered here, a lot of ideas. And think about how these ideas, how spending time in this class is planting amazing positive seeds in our hearts for becoming fully enlightened so we can benefit others. How fortunate we are to have this time together, to have this information, to have these amazing live translators who can give us this information in a language we understand. How fortunate we are. May these seeds that we've planted, may they work only for the benefit of all living beings, that all living beings can be introduced to and understand and become free of suffering. May there be no more pain or discomfort, no more poverty or war. No more sadness. May it happen quickly. Sachi Puki Tukshin Metotra Rirabling Shin Inde Gempadi Sange Shindu Mikteo Ki Jokun Namdak Shingla Jupasho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami Kewadi Kewoku Sunam Yashe Tuksokshin Sunam Yashe Dejunwe Tampar Kuni Topar Sho. Thank you all for your interest in this course and your participation and especially your practice. Thank you, live translators. Amazing. I want to be like you someday. Have a great rest of your day and have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you.
Наши благодарности. Рады.
Thank you, teacher.
Спасибо.
Thank you so much, teacher.
Good one.